Help support AMTV by becoming a patron, an AMTV staff member, and following us over on Twitter.
Hi there guys, it's Adam Martyn here, and welcome back to another video, and today we're going to be discussing Eurovision 2025 and the possibility that Switzerland itself, the host country, might end up causing its cancellation. Now that sounds pretty extreme, but there's been some news circulating that has pricked the ears of certain Euro fans like myself and has got us a little worried. Now the information today has come from Eurovoix, so you can go and check them out if you want your Eurovision news. The first article that I saw was this: Eurovision 2025, Zurich Cantonal Council approves funding for Eurovision. Now that's positive, you know, that the Cantonal Council of Zurich has granted funding, but just hang on. The Zurich Cantonal Council has this afternoon approved funding for the city's potential hosting of the Eurovision Song Contest 2025. The Cantonal Council in Zurich passed a motion this afternoon approving the release of 5 million CHF to support Zurich hosting the Eurovision Song Contest. The motion passed 105 votes for, 62 against, and 1 abstention. So that's important to point out right off the bat. When they went through this motion in the Cantonal Council of Zurich, it wasn't a unanimous, yes, let's give the funding, let's make it happen. Yes, 105 is the majority, but 62 against? That's a higher number than I would have expected. The approval of the Cantonal Council comes 1 week after Zurich City Council also approved in principle a 20 million CHF loan to support the city's bid to host. The motion did not pass without debate, with concerns raised regarding funds being used for an entertainment event. Questions were also raised regarding the use of money from the canton's charitable fund from the contest. Right, okay, and let's remember that loan, that 20 million CHF, it says, is in principle. That's not a given. And I guess, you know, we've always known that the Eurovision now, particularly in the last, I don't know, 10, 15 years, has become quite expensive to put on. And remember, the last time that Switzerland hosted the contest was 1989, when I'm sure it still would have been a cost, but the cost, I'd imagine, would have been significantly less back then. I mean, we're 35 years on. A little bit more about Zurich's Eurovision bid, if that's the city you're hoping gets it. It says it focuses on the 15,000-seater Hallen Stadion, the largest indoor arena in Switzerland. This will be the venue of Eurovision 2025 if Zurich is chosen. The Messe Zurich, sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong, or the Zurich Exhibition Hall, is located next door to Hallen Stadion and can provide extra space. So the other locations for other events mentioned in the bid, so they're saying Landweis, is that how you say it, by Lake Zurich for the village, which sounds quite cool, and Zurich Convention Centre, which would be the Euro Club, the opening ceremony, and other official events. Trying to keep everything sort of as close together as possible, I think would be a decent idea. As a contribution to the total cost of planning and implementing the ESC, Zurich City Council is requesting a framework loan of 20 million CHF, or equivalent to about 20.84 million euros, from the Municipal Council. The loan is subject to the condition that SRG SSR, that's the broadcaster, and the European Broadcasting Union choose Zurich as the host city of Eurovision 2025. So clearly Zurich as a city is gunning for it. There are other cities as well, which we'll get into, but Zurich, from the discussion I've seen, seems to be one of the front runners, how the infrastructure is sort of tailor-made for Eurovision as it is now, you know, this sort of huge grandstanding event. That doesn't mean other places don't have a chance, but I'd say Zurich, out of them all, is definitely, at least for me, a front runner. But as we mentioned, there was debate there, but that wasn't the only article. The second article states political parties plan referendum against Bern's hosting. Now, Bern, to my knowledge, is the capital of Switzerland. So, you know, to have it in a nation's capital, that would be quite a big move, as a lot of nations do that. It says Bern's bid to host Eurovision Song Contest 2025 appears at risk following two political parties' plans to secure a referendum on hosting. The Swiss People's Party and the Federal Democratic Union Party have announced that they're aiming to get a referendum against the cantonal government of Bern's plans to part fund Bern's hosting of Eurovision 2025 should it be chosen to host. A referendum? Oh boy, us UK lot, we know all about referendums and how they went so well. The referendum would be held if the Bern cantonal government approves funding for the Eurovision Song Contest 2025, which would be required if Bern is chosen to host the contest. The matter, which swissinfo.ch reports, would go to the cantonal parliament in September, would then be subject to a 3-month referendum period, with a vote being held in early 2025. Bern and, is it Biel, again sorry if I'm pronouncing this wrong, their bid to host Eurovision 2025 has received the largest amount of public opposition of all the bidding cities. The bid is also viewed as the riskiest, as the proposed venue will not finish construction until shortly before the contest. Now, that is a risk for any venue that's being either purpose-built for the contest or is undergoing construction or renovation. You're always placing a time frame on that, and I think to some degree that makes it unappealing for the EBU or whoever's in charge of that to select that city, because yes, they'll say, oh, you say we'll get it done by January, easy, but then you never know what's going to happen. Then what if it isn't going to get done until February and March and the contest is in May? So that inadvertently already placed a risk for Bern and Beale's bid. Interesting how it's had the largest amount of public opposition, because I think that's something, fans, including myself, we forget sometimes. Like, these are taking place in cities. People live in these places. It can be a huge change to their lives for the few weeks that Eurovision is in town. Sometimes that's really positive. I know with the Liverpool one in 2023, there was such a positive reception to that. Loads of businesses, lots of people got involved. But for other nations, other cities, it's not always necessarily the case. Interesting regarding a referendum as well, saying a vote would be held if it passed in early 2025. So imagine it's already going underway, like preparations are starting, all that sort of stuff. And then imagine if in like January, February, the referendum leans towards no, and then part of the funding wouldn't go. What happens then? That's a very grey area for sure. A bit more about Bern and Beale's bid is it focuses on hosting the contest at the Noël Festival in Bern, which will open in March 2025. Events related to the contest will be held across the two cities, ensuring that both are an important part of the Eurovision Song Contest. The key events and locations are, so the Eurovision Village they're proposing in Bern would be in the grounds of the Noël Festival. The handover ceremony and the running order draw, that would be in Beale. Turquoise carpet and opening ceremony in Bern from, I'm not even going to try pronouncing all that, but I'm sure you can tell me how in the comments. The public viewing zone would be in Bern, and the public viewing zone hometown would be in Beale, because am I right in thinking that Nemo, the winner of Eurovision 2024, didn't they come from Beale? Isn't that their home city, hometown sort of thing? I believe that's right. Let me know if that's wrong in the comments, though. So that's already thrown up a bit more jeopardy, but then the third article I found was this. Political party aims to hold referendums against all potential host cities' funding of Eurovision. So this isn't just dissent in Zurich. This isn't just, outcry in Bern and Beale. This is now all host cities. The Swiss press agency reports that the Federal Democratic Union of Switzerland is aiming to hold a referendum or referendums against government funding for Eurovision 2025. The Federal Democratic Union of Switzerland political party has announced that it's aiming to launch referendums against city and cantonal funding of Eurovision 2025. The UDF is joined by the German-speaking Taxpayers Federation, which is also targeting Zurich's bid to host Eurovision 2025. The EDU, which is a ultra-conservative evangelical party, argues that the Eurovision Song Contest is evolving with more and more anti-Semitic incidents, as well as more and more Satanist and occultist contributions. Oh boy! Everyone's entitled to their opinion. If that's what they believe, that's what they believe. And I just think, this whole more Satanist and occultist contributions, depending on your definition, you could argue that's been going on for decades now, and yet the Switzerland has continued to send acts forward. I don't agree with this personally. It wants to collect signatures in Zurich, Geneva, Basel and Bern to hold referendums, which would target the use of public funds to support the hosting of Eurovision 2025. Yes, so the two other cities that were mentioned there that haven't mentioned yet is Geneva, which is also the home of the United Nations, funnily enough, and Basel. All of the four bidding cities have stated in their bids that they need support from the city or cantonal government to assist with hosting the Eurovision Song Contest. Without the support of the local government to host the Eurovision Song Contest, there would be significant budget gaps from all the bidding cities. That does surprise me, because I think, let's face it, to a lot of us outside of Switzerland, this picture's painted of this very rich, very wealthy, very affluent nation, and that very well may be the case, but it surprises me that all cities, regardless of size or scale, all four of the bidding cities have said they're going to need support from either the city or cantonal governments in order to put this on. They're riding a lot on it, so I guess why these parties are targeting that funding, because if they don't get it, yes, there's going to be funding gaps, and then it means what's going to be sacrificed in that. Referendums are an important part of the Swiss political system, with any member of the public able to launch a referendum. God, could you imagine if that was the case here in the UK? It'd be referendums every day. The requirements to hold a referendum are different across the cities and canton, ranging from 1,500 signatures to 10,000 signatures to get the referendum put to voters. In Bern, a potential referendum would not be voted on until early 2025. We touched on that earlier. So, yeah, it's really interesting. Now, do I think at the moment that Eurovision 2025 is at risk of full-on, cancellation, not happening? No. Obviously, it's a bit of a worry for fans like myself that there's these either political parties or groups or people who basically are trying to cripple the funding of the contest, who I guess by way and large are saying they don't really want the contest to take place in these Swiss cities. That is a worry, and should these referendums go through and should they be voted on in their favour, then I think we could have a severely reduced Eurovision this year. As I said, if budget gaps are allowed, what's going to be sacrificed? Obviously, the main show, the semi-finals, the grand final, that's going to be, I don't know what the word would be, but protected, you know what I mean? That's going to be the focus. But maybe what's going to be sacrificed? Maybe it's things like the Eurovision Village, because, there's a lot of organisation, a lot of money that goes into setting that up. Or maybe it could be the Euro Club, for example. Again, that's a huge expense as well. So maybe it's all these the side events that go along with Eurovision now that might be sacrificed first. But it's a weird one, isn't it? Obviously, it's a shame. Again, everyone's entitled to their opinion, particularly with residents of these cities. As I said, when Eurovision happens, we're all coming in. We're the guests. And for some people, they might not necessarily want that. They haven't necessarily had the biggest choice in the matter. But with these referendums, they might be able to have a chance to not necessarily have their full say, but they might be able to have an impact on how the contest is run for next year. It's a very interesting one, but let me know your thoughts about this in the comments down below. Do you think these challenges are really going to threaten Eurovision 2025 next year or not? Let me know down below. But that's all for this video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like on it. It really does help us out. And subscribe if you're brand new. We'd love to have you aboard. In the meantime, I've been Martyn from AMTV. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next time. Thank you to our patrons for helping to support the show, and a special thank you to Macra, Ethan Carberry-Holt, Bruce Danton, Derek Chambers, Shaun Knock, Daud Khan, Liam De-Maine, Trev Hughes, Dec, Evonne 41, Jen, Tim Ripley, Mr. Eurovision 1986, Ted Elliott, John Wakefield, and Marnell Thurman, our AMTV staff members.